The aliens stopped laughing once Earth's dumb beasts ripped out their throats. Before humanity even settled the stars, the Galactic Council had judged us puny apes unworthy of a seat at the table. Stephen Parker sipped his whiskey, the burn matching the fire behind his eyes, as he overheard a group of young Remans mock humanity's bond with inferior animals. "I once thought like you," the grizzled veteran said, spinning on his bar stool to face the arrogant reptilians. "Then I watched those lesser creatures save our entire species." Deneb, the Reman ringleader adorned in powered armor that barely contained his 8-foot frame, sneered at the old man. "Your kind are weak, relying on pathetic pets. When the Council sent our warships to your planet, you should have surrendered to your betters." Stephen slammed down his glass. 100 Reman vessels, energy shields shrugging off our nukes like rain, plasma cannons melting cities as your troops stormed the rubble, millions dead in days, our armies crumbling. He leaned forward, his voice low. "But you didn't count on mankind's best friends." The bar fell silent, every patron leaning in to hear Stephen's next words. Young Remans, who had only known the shared peace between the Council races, exchanged uneasy glances, surprised by the humans' intensity. They had grown up hearing tales of their species' failed invasion of Earth, but never understood how the primitives had turned the tide. If Stephen was telling the truth about the overwhelming Reman advantage, then how did a divided humanity rally to repel the unstoppable alien onslaught? Humanity was on the razor's edge between extinction and survival. Stephen's story, the only thing that could explain how a backwater race defeated a galactic superpower. The Reman soldiers leaned closer despite themselves, their curiosity overpowering their species' infamous pride. They needed to hear this, needed to understand the secrets that turned certain defeat into impossible victory. Because if they didn't learn from the past, the Reman Empire might not survive the enemies stirring in the galactic depths. Humanity and its dumb beasts could be the key to saving the Reman's scaly hides. The price of that knowledge? Sitting down, shutting up, and listening to every word out of Stephen Parker's mouth as if their lives depended on it. Because they just might. You see, the Remans had never encountered anything like Earth's predators before. Stephen continued, his voice low and steady. They were used to fighting wars against other civilizations with advanced technology, not against tooth and claw. The Reman soldiers shifted uneasily in their seats, their eyes widening, as Stephen described how the planet's apex predators, once on the brink of extinction due to human activity, suddenly found themselves with an abundance of prey in the form of Reman ground troops. The Reman-powered armor was designed to withstand plasma blasts and high-velocity projectiles, but it couldn't stand up to the crushing jaws and razor-sharp claws of Earth's fiercest creatures, Stephen said, his eyes distant as if reliving the memories. He told them about Shadow, a massive alpha wolf who led his pack through the ruins of cities, using their keen senses and teamwork to ambush Reman patrols. In the savannas of Africa, a battle-scarred lion named Kaylee adapted his hunting strategies to take down Reman soldiers, even learning to avoid their plasma weapons. The Remans found themselves on the defensive, their numbers dwindling rapidly as they faced a primal fury they had never encountered before. But it wasn't just the large predators that posed a threat. Even the smaller ones, like honey badgers and wolverines, fearlessly attacked Reman soldiers, despite their size disadvantage, Stephen said, a hint of pride in his voice. There was one honey badger nicknamed Ripper by human survivors, who became a legend after single-handedly killing a dozen Reman soldiers in a vicious, prolonged battle. The Reman soldiers exchanged glances, their earlier bravado replaced by a growing sense of unease. They had never heard these stories before, never realized the true extent of the challenges their ancestors had faced on Earth. Stephen leaned back in his seat, taking another sip of his whiskey. But that was just the beginning, he said, his eyes glinting with a mixture of pride and sorrow. The real turning point came when we realized that the animals weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for us. As the Remans struggled against Earth's wild predators, they soon found themselves facing an unexpected threat, man's best friend. Dogs, having served as loyal companions and protectors for millennia, now turned their fangs against the alien invaders with the same ferocity as their untamed brethren. German shepherds, Rottweilers, and pit bulls, breeds trained by human military and police forces, formed their own packs, coordinating attacks on Riemann patrols with a skill that matched the wolves and lions. These faithful canines, guided by an innate desire to defend their human families, proved to be a formidable force on the battlefield. Amidst the chaos, a Belgian Malinois named Max emerged as a symbol of hope for the battered human resistance. Max's bravery shone through when he single-handedly saved a group of children from a Riemann death squad. Despite being hit multiple times by searing plasma bolts, Max pushed through the pain, his jaws clamping down on alien throats and his claws tearing through their armor. He killed 4 Riemann soldiers before the rest fled, buying just enough time for the children to escape to safety. But dogs weren't the only domestic animals to join the fight. Cats, too, played a surprising role in the struggle against the Riemanns. Feral felines, long accustomed to navigating the shadows of human cities, used their stealth and agility to infiltrate Riemann camps unseen. They sabotaged equipment, chewed through wires, and left the invaders vulnerable to ambushes. Some cats even learned to trigger human weapons. They'd bat at pins on grenades or step on landmines, unleashing devastating explosions on the unsuspecting Riemanns. A calico named Luna became a feline hero after sneaking into a Riemann ammunition depot. With a well-placed paw, she detonated the entire stockpile, killing dozens of soldiers and crippling the invaders' supply lines in one fell swoop. As the Riemann soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, Stephen took another sip of his whiskey, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. You see, the Riemanns made the same mistake as so many others who came before them, he said, his voice low and steady. They underestimated the power of the bond between humans and our animals. They thought they could conquer us, but they never stood a chance against the combined might of man and beast. The young Riemanns shifted in their seats, their earlier bravado replaced by a newfound respect for the inferior creatures they had once mocked. They leaned forward, hanging on Stephen's every word, realizing that the key to their own survival might lie in the tales of Earth's greatest defenders, both human and animal alike. Stephen's voice grew sober as he recounted the Riemann's desperate gambit. Commander Zorg, that scaly bastard, couldn't accept defeat at the hands of what he saw as lowly beasts, so he unleashed a bioweapon, a virus engineered to wipe out Earth's mammals. The bar patrons gasped. Even the arrogant Riemanns looked unsettled by their ancestors' actions. Stephen continued, "Drones released the virus into our atmosphere. It spread like wildfire, animals sickening and dying by the millions. We thought it was the end." He paused, letting the horror sink in. But then something incredible happened. The virus mutated some creatures, enhancing them in ways we never imagined. A golden retriever buddy developed telepathic abilities. He could coordinate packs of dogs to strike Riemann patrols with surgical precision. Stephen grinned at the memory. And then there was Caesar, a chimp from the city zoo. The virus made him smarter than any human. He busted out with his troop and started waging guerrilla warfare on the Riemanns. You should have seen the looks on those scaly faces when they got ambushed by chimps with spears and slings. The old soldier leaned forward, his eyes intense. Suddenly it wasn't just tooth and claw anymore. Enhanced animals were using tactics, teamwork, even weapons. Buddy's dog packs took out Riemann comms, guided by his telepathic commands. Caesar's troop sabotaged supply lines and raided ammo dumps. He slammed his empty glass on the bar. The tide was turning. What Zorg meant to be our extinction became our salvation. More and more animals started developing abilities, taking the fight to the Riemanns in ways they never saw coming. The Riemann soldiers shifted uneasily, realizing how close their species had come to catastrophe. Earth's fauna had proven far more resilient and adaptable than they ever imagined. And now, those same creatures were an integral part of the alliance that kept the galaxy safe. Stephen smiled, a glint in his eye. You know, there's an old human saying, nature finds a way. Well, Zorg found that out the hard way when his bioweapon backfired spectacularly, because when you back Earth's creatures into a corner, when you threaten our world, that's when you see what we're really made of. He looked around the bar. meeting the eyes of every patron. The Raymans thought they could conquer us, thought they could wipe us out with a virus, but what they really did was create their own worst nightmare. An army of enhanced animals, fighting alongside humans united in our determination to protect our home. Stephen chuckled darkly. I almost feel sorry for old Zorg, almost, because he had no idea what he was unleashing when he tried to play God with nature, and by the time he realized his mistake, it was already too late. The Riemann soldiers in the bar sat in stunned silence as Stephen took another sip of whiskey, letting the weight of his words sink in. The human's tale had taken an unexpected turn, revealing a desperate gambit by the Riemann commander that had nearly turned the tide of the war. Stephen set his glass down with a heavy thunk, his eyes distant as he recalled the harrowing mission. Jack Maverick Carter was the meanest son of a bitch I ever met, he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. When he heard about Zorg's bioweapon, he knew we had to take the fight to the Riemanns. The old soldier described how Maverick assembled a team of the most skilled human survivors and their enhanced animal companions. Max, the Belgian Malinois, who had become a legend among the resistance, was the first to volunteer. Buddy, the golden retriever with telepathic abilities, and Caesar, the super-intelligent chimpanzee, rounded out the infiltration team. They snuck aboard the Riemann command ship using a captured shuttle, Stephen said, his voice low and intense. Once inside, all hell broke loose. The human-animal team fought their way through the ship's defenses, their coordination and adaptability proving more than a match for the Riemann soldiers. Max tore through the alien ranks, his powerful jaws crushing armor and bone alike. Buddy used his telepathic link to guide the team, warning them of incoming threats and coordinating their attacks. Caesar, armed with a plasma rifle he had scavenged from a fallen Riemann, provided covering fire with uncanny accuracy. But as they neared the bridge, they encountered a new threat. Zorg unleashed his secret weapon, Stephen said, his face grim. Genetically modified Riemann super soldiers, each as big as a grizzly bear and twice as mean. The ensuing battle was brutal, the corridors of the command ship echoing with the sounds of plasma fire and animalistic roars. The human-animal team fought with everything they had, but the Riemann super soldiers seemed unstoppable. We lost good people that day, Stephen said, his voice heavy with emotion. But in the end it was Maverick and Max who turned the tide. The old soldier described how the pair had fought their way to the bridge, confronting Zorg himself. The Riemann commander, clad in a massive powered exoskeleton bristling with weapons, had been a formidable opponent. But Maverick's tactical brilliance and Max's unwavering loyalty proved too much for the alien warlord. It was like watching a dance of death, Stephen said, his eyes distant. Maverick and Max moved as one, dodging plasma blasts and striking at Zorg's weak points. In the end, it was Max who delivered the killing blow, his jaws clamping down on the Riemann's throat and tearing through his armor like it was paper. With Zorg defeated and the command ship under their control, the human resistance had sent a message to the Riemann fleet, demanding their immediate withdrawal from Earth. Stephen paused, his gaze sweeping over the stunned Riemann soldiers in the bar. "And that," he said, his voice low and fierce, "is how we beat you. Not with superior technology or firepower, but with the unbreakable bond between humans and our animal companions, a bond that your kind will never understand." The Riemann soldiers in the bar were stunned into silence by Stephen's tale. They exchanged uneasy glances as the old man drained the last drops of whiskey from his glass, his eyes distant as he relived the final harrowing moments of the war. Faced with the defeat of their commander and the threat of a coordinated human-animal counterattack, the Riemann fleet reluctantly agreed to withdraw from Earth, Stephen continued. But as the Riemann ships prepared to depart, a faction of hardliners led by Zorg's second-in-command, a ruthless officer named Tsar, refused to accept defeat. Stephen's grip tightened on his empty glass, his knuckles turning white. Tsar launched a devastating orbital bombardment on Earth's surface, targeting major population centers and industrial hubs. The destruction was unlike anything we'd seen before. Cities crumbled, forests burned, and countless lives were lost, both human and animal. He paused, his voice heavy with emotion. Among the casualties was Caesar, the chimpanzee leader. He sacrificed himself to save a group of human children from a collapsing building. It was a blow to us all. The bar patrons bowed their heads in silent respect for the fallen hero. Stephen took a deep breath, his eyes hardening. Enraged by this betrayal and the loss of our comrades, the Human-Animal Alliance launched a desperate final assault on the remaining Raymond forces. He described how Buddy, the telepathic golden retriever, used his abilities to coordinate a massive swarm of birds, eagles, hawks, and falcons, to attack the Riemann ship's sensors and communication arrays. They were blinded and deafened, Stephen said, a hint of pride in his voice. They never saw what hit them. On the ground, packs of enhanced wolves and big cats led by Shadow and Kaylee tore through the Riemann infantry with a ferocity that struck fear into the hearts of the alien soldiers. Ripper the honey badger and his fellow mustelids wreaked havoc on their supply lines, crippling their ability to fight back. In space, human pilots and their animal co-pilots engaged in daring dogfights with Riemann fighters. They used unconventional tactics and their superior maneuverability to outmatch the alien craft, Stephen said, his eyes gleaming with admiration. It was a sight to behold. But the tide of the battle truly turned when Max, still grieving the loss of his friend Caesar, managed to board Tsar's flagship. He confronted the Riemann officer in a vicious hand-to-hand battle, Stephen said, his voice low and intense. It was a brutal fight, neither of them giving an inch. In the end, Max emerged victorious, but not before sustaining mortal wounds. With Tsar defeated and their fleet in disarray, the remaining Riemann forces fled Earth's orbit, leaving behind a battered but unbroken human-animal alliance. Stephen set his empty glass down on the bar, his gaze sweeping over the stunned Riemann soldiers. And that, he said, his voice filled with a mix of pride and sorrow, is how we won the war, not just with guns and bombs, but with the courage and sacrifice of our animal companions. They fought beside us, bled with us, and in the end they saved us all. Stephen gazed into his whiskey, his eyes distant as memories flooded back. The aftermath was hell, he said quietly. So much rubble, so many bodies, human and animal alike. He took a long sip, then continued. But we had no time to mourn, we had to rebuild, and thank God for the enhanced animals. They were a godsend in those early days. Stephen told of how Buddy the golden retriever used his telepathic powers to locate survivors trapped under collapsed buildings, guiding rescue teams to them. That dog saved hundreds, maybe thousands, he said, shaking his head in wonder. Led us right to people buried under tons of concrete and steel, never would have found them otherwise. As refugees huddled in makeshift camps and settlements, enhanced wolves and big cats patrolled the perimeters, keeping watch for looters and troublemakers. They were better than any security force, Stephen said with a chuckle. One look at a snarling megawolf, and any would-be bandit turned tail and ran. Over time, human and animal worked side by side to clear rubble, build shelters, plant crops. No longer pet and owner, but partners in survival. Leaders emerged, both two-legged and four. Decisions made by committee, every voice equal, every perspective valued. Years passed. Cities rose from ashes. A new society took shape, one where human and animal were true equals. Soldiers became farmers, scholars, explorers. Fang and claw turned to the pursuit of knowledge and the taming of wild frontiers. Earth's recovery did not go unnoticed. The Galactic Council, long dismissive of the upstart Terrans, now saw humans and animals in a new light. They sent an envoy, Stephen said, nursing his drink, a being named Zorax, old as time and wise as they come. Zorax came not to conquer, but to learn, to understand the secret of Earth's resilience. Stephen smiled as he recalled the ancient alien's wonder at witnessing a human and an enhanced chimp work together to repair a solar panel. He'd never seen anything like it, Stephen said. Such cooperation between species, Zorax told me. It defies understanding, but perhaps it is the key to lasting peace. And so a new alliance was born. The Terran Federation, a union of human and animal, working with the Galactic Council to rebuild not just Earth, but the galaxy itself. Explorers ventured to the stars, each ship crewed by a mix of skin and fur and scale. Diplomats brokered treaties and trade agreements, a wolf's keen nose sniffing out falsehood, an orangutan's nimble fingers working the clauses. "We showed them a new way," Stephen said, a note of pride in his voice, "a better way. Humans and animals, Terran and alien, all working as one." He raised his near-empty glass in salute. "To the Terran Federation, to the future." The old soldier leaned back in his seat, his eyes distant as he continued his tale. "As the years passed and the Terran Federation grew, we began to explore the far reaches of the galaxy," Stephen said, his voice low and steady. "We encountered new species, new civilizations, each with their own stories and struggles." He took a sip of his whiskey, savoring the burn. One such mission was led by Captain Marcus Reynolds, a brave and cunning explorer, and his loyal companion, Ace, a genetically enhanced German shepherd. Reynolds and Ace were exploring the edge of Riemann space when they stumbled upon a hidden planet deep within a nebula, he continued. They landed on the surface and discovered ancient alien ruins filled with technology and artifacts beyond our wildest dreams. He paused, letting the image sink in. But as they delved deeper into the ruins, they encountered a group of Riemann scientists, led by a brilliant but ruthless researcher named Dr. Zahn. The Riemann soldiers shifted uneasily at the mention of their own kind. Stephen pressed on, his voice growing more intense. Zahn and his team had been studying the ruins for years, hoping to unlock their secrets and gain an advantage over the other galactic powers, he said, his eyes narrowing. And they had made a startling discovery, a powerful AI system that could potentially give them control over the entire galaxy. The bar fell silent, the weight of Stephen's words hanging in the air. The Riemann soldiers exchanged nervous glances, realizing the gravity of the situation. Reynolds and Ace knew they had to stop Zahn, Stephen said, his voice low and fierce. They engaged the Riemann scientists in a desperate struggle, fighting to prevent them from activating the AI. He described the battle in vivid detail, his words painting a picture of advanced weaponry and fierce tactics. The Riemann soldiers leaned forward, hanging on his every word. But Reynolds and Ace had something the Riemanns didn't, Stephen said, a hint of pride in his voice. They had the bond between human and animal, a bond that had been forged in the fires of war and tempered by years of trust and loyalty. He paused, letting the words sink in. In the end, it was Ace who made the ultimate sacrifice. He destroyed the AI's central core, giving his life to save Reynolds and the galaxy from the Riemann's grasp. The bar was silent, the Riemann soldiers stunned by the tale of heroism and sacrifice. Stephen raised his glass in a silent toast to the fallen hero. Reynolds returned to Earth with the knowledge of the Riemann's secret research, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. And that information would prove crucial in the years to come, as the Terran Federation worked to maintain the balance of power in the galaxy and prevent the Riemann Empire from rising again. Stephen's eyes grew distant as he recounted the next chapter in the Terran Federation's saga, his voice heavy with the weight of history. 4 decades after the discovery of those ancient alien ruins, the Federation thrived, he said, his gaze sweeping over the bar. Our scientists and engineers, working hand in hand with our enhanced animal companions, made breakthroughs that propelled us to the forefront of the galaxy. The old soldier's expression darkened. But peace never lasts forever. A new threat emerged from the depths of space, the Kelthar, a race hell-bent on conquest and subjugation. The Riemann soldiers leaned forward, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. Stephen pressed on. The Kelthar hit us like a tidal wave, their warships armed with tech we'd never seen before. They swept aside our defenses like they were nothing, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. He took a long swig of his whiskey, letting the burn fuel his words. The Terran Federation and our allies in the Galactic Council found ourselves in the fight of our lives. Our fleets clashed in the void of space, while on the ground our soldiers battled Kelthar warriors in brutal, bloody combat. Stephen's voice took on a note of pride. But in the midst of that chaos, a new hero rose. Lieutenant Elena Nakamura and her partner Asha, a genetically enhanced Bengal tiger. Nakamura and Asha were part of a special ops team, tasked with infiltrating Kelthar space and digging up intel on their capabilities. And what they found changed everything. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. The Kelthar weren't a single species, but a collection of conquered races, each with their own unique abilities, all enslaved by a ruling caste called the Overlords. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Stephen nodded, his expression grim. Nakamura and Asha saw an opportunity. They launched a campaign of sabotage and guerrilla warfare, working to undermine the Overlord's control and spark rebellion among the subjugated races. Stephen leaned back, his voice growing quieter. Nakamura and Asha's efforts, combined with the bravery of countless other soldiers and animals across the galaxy, began to turn the tide. The Kelthar were forced to divert more and more resources to quelling internal unrest, weakening their hold on the worlds they had conquered. He fixed the Riemann soldiers with a piercing stare. But the war was far from over. The Kelthar overlords, desperate to maintain their grip on power, unleashed a new weapon, a bioengineered plague that targeted the bond between humans and animals, turning us against each other. Gasps of horror echoed through the bar. Stephen's eyes blazed with anger. The plague swept through our ranks like wildfire, causing enhanced animals to turn on their human partners in fits of rage and madness. Brother fought brother, friend fought friend, as the very bonds that had made us strong were turned against us. His voice dropped to a whisper. In the chaos, Nakamura and Asha found themselves on opposite sides, the tiger's mind twisted by the Overlord's vile bioweapon. They confronted each other on the battlefield, each struggling against the plague's influence, each knowing that only one of them would walk away. Stephen paused, his gaze distant as if reliving the moment. The bar waited with bated breath, the silence broken only by the hum of the drink's cooler and the distant thrum of starship engines. Stephen's eyes grew haunted as he recounted the final desperate assault on the Kelthar homeworld. It was a gamble, a last-ditch effort to end the war before it consumed us all, he said, his voice low and rough. We threw everything we had at them. Every ship, every soldier, every enhanced animal. It was all or nothing. The Raymond soldiers leaned forward, their eyes wide as they listened to the old veteran's tale. Stephen's hands shook as he described the chaos of the battle, the screams of the dying mingling with the roar of plasma fire and the howls of genetically enhanced beasts. Lieutenant Nakamura and Asha fought like demons, he said, his voice filled with a mix of pride and sorrow. They led a strike team into the heart of the Kelthar capital, cutting through the enemy lines like a hot knife through butter. The bar fell silent as Stephen described the final confrontation with the Supreme Overlord, a monstrous being of unimaginable power and cruelty. Asha weakened his defenses, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, but not before she took a hit that would have killed a lesser creature. She bought Nakamura the opening she needed to end that bastard once and for all. Stephen slumped back in his seat, the weight of the memories heavy on his shoulders. He spoke of the aftermath, of the Kelthar Empire crumbling and the Terran Federation left shattered, of Nakamura disappearing into the depths of space, the weight of the war and her losses too much to bear. The Riemann soldiers sat in stunned silence, their minds reeling from the scope of the conflict. They had grown up in a galaxy forever changed by the war, but hearing it from Stephen's lips made it all too real. Stephen drained the last of his whiskey and stood, his eyes meeting those of the young soldiers. Earth's creatures became legends in that war, he said, his voice rough with emotion. But it came at a terrible price, one that we're still paying to this day. He walked out of the bar, his footsteps heavy. The Raymond soldiers watched him go, their minds filled with the ghosts of the fallen and the scars left by a conflict that had nearly torn the galaxy apart. Outside, Stephen looked up at the stars, his eyes haunted by the memories of all he had lost. He knew that the war was over. But for him and so many others, the battle would never truly end. The scars ran too deep, the losses too great. "Humanity, fuck yeah," he whispered to the night sky, his voice tinged with bitter irony. But at what cost? You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.